Hi there, I'm Tara with the Hobby Lobby Creative Studio. Do you ever think about how cool it would be to make your own custom jewelry, but not knowing where to get started is holding you back? Well, just like any new venture, you've got to start with the basics. And we'll do just that in our Jewelry 101 video series, where I'll show you one basic jewelry making technique after another. In this video, I'll show you how to use crimp beads and crimp covers. I'll be right back. Crimp beads are an excellent way to secure your beads onto beading wire, but they can be a little tricky to figure out. Here's what you'll need to begin using crimp beads. Beading wire, 2 crimp beads, a clasp, crimping pliers, protective eyewear, flush cutters, a selection of beads, 2 crimp covers, and chain nose pliers. Crimp beads come in different sizes. The size you need will depend on the thickness of beading wire you are using. Thicker beading wire will need larger crimp beads, and thinner beading wire will need smaller crimp beads. You need to be able to fit 2 pieces of the wire you are using through the crimp bead. They should slide through easily, but not be too loose. There are also 3 sizes of crimpers: micro, regular, and mighty. To ensure the most secure hold, it's really important that you're using the correct size of crimp beads, wire, and crimpers. I'll be using 2mm crimp beads, medium weight beading wire, and regular crimpers. First, let's take a closer look at your crimping pliers. Crimpers have 2 notches in them. To see the notches clearly, close the pliers. The back notch closest to the handle of the pliers has a curve in it on one side and looks like a tiny letter U, while the front notch, closest to the tip of the pliers, is rounded on both sides and looks like a small oval. When you're ready to begin beading, first slip a crimp bead onto the beading wire, followed by a clasp. Now do a U-turn with the wire and go back through the crimp bead in the opposite direction. Pull the wire through, making the loop around the clasp nice and small, but not so tight that the clasp can't move freely. Now take your crimpers and carefully place the crimp bead in the back notch closest to the handle of the pliers. You'll want to get the 2 pieces of wire side by side where one is on the left and one is on the right, not one on top of the other or twisted. Slowly but firmly squeeze the pliers, flattening the bead around the wires. There should now be a small curve in the middle of the crimp bead where it has bent into the notch on the pliers and has slightly separated the 2 wires. Next, move the crimp bead to the front notch on the pliers. Place the bead upright this time so the curved bead looks like a letter C. Doing this allows the bead to fold in half at the curve when you squeeze again. When you're done, gently pull on the clasp to make sure the wires are held securely in the crimp bead. If your wire pulls free or wiggles, try squeezing the bead in the front notch of the pliers one more time. If this still doesn't tighten it, you may need to switch to a smaller crimp bead or heavier wire. Once everything is nice and snug, use your cutters to trim the excess wire down to about 1 to 2 inches. Crimp beads are very functional, but they're not the prettiest component in jewelry. That's where crimp covers come in. These are little covers placed around a crimp bead to camouflage it and to make it appear like a little silver bead. To use a crimp cover, simply place the cover around a crimp bead. Use your chain nose pliers to very gently squeeze the cover just enough to make the open edges touch. Then, little by little, keep squeezing gently as you move the pliers around the crimp cover, refining the shape as you go. Moving around while you squeeze helps to make the cover close up nice and round instead of having a gap. Since these are hollow, you can dent them or even smash them if you squeeze too hard. And that's it! Now that you've attached the crimp bead and added a cover, you can begin beading your project. As you start beading, Bring the first several beads down over both of the wires to hide them, then continue with your design. When you're done beading, you'll finish out your project with another crimp bead. To do this, place the crimp bead and the other end of your clasp on the wire. Make a U-turn and come back through the crimp bead. At the same time, go ahead and feed the wire through the last several beads on the strand. Pull the end of the wire so the remaining loop is nice and small and the crimp bead is right next to the last bead on the strand. Now you're ready to secure the crimp bead. You'll do the same thing you did for the first crimp bead. Begin with the bead in the back notch on the pliers and squeeze, then move to the front notch, rotate it upright, and squeeze again. Give a little tug on the clasp to make sure everything is secure, then trim off any excess wire. Be sure the very end of the wire is tucked inside the strand of beads. Add a crimp cover to that second crimp bead and you're all done. Now that you've got that down, be sure to check out our other Jewelry 101 video tutorials to learn even more basic techniques and to learn more about the materials used in jewelry making. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.